Today, I found out a woman I know has faked a pregnancy, uses dollars baby, and last night jumped off a boat claiming her newborn baby fell in. She was arrested today for wasting police time. What is the lowest you have seen people stoop to for attention? I was bored one day on Facebook and realized that one of my friends had created over 10 fake accounts to comment and like her own posts and pictures. She would meticulously vary the likes and comments to make it look random. These accounts went back over 2 years. I called her out and she blocked me over it. Nowhere near as bad as some of these, but the sheer amount of effort and time she must have put into it is mind-blowing to me. There's a mod on Reddit, I think the AMA mod, who has a second account that has been discovered to have been arguing with himself months back. Knew a woman who repeatedly force-fed her children sugar so they'd have diabetes when they went to the doctor. Knew a woman who coached her toddler to tell police her dad molested her. God, I love working in mental health sometimes. Munchausen by proxy. There was a group of us who were friends with a guy about 6 years older than us throughout high school. Looking back, it is clear that this was initially a symbiotic relationship. He would buy us beer, which we paid for, and take us driving around before we got our licenses at 17. In return, he got people to hang around with. His age group had moved on into adulthood, but he never had. As everyone got older, we all got girlfriends and hung around with him less and less. One day he announced that he had a girlfriend too. He went on and on about her for months as we began turning the heat up to meet her. Several dinners were scheduled, but she always cancelled at the last minute. There came a point where he could no longer really keep the meeting from happening, so another dinner was scheduled. Unfortunately, she died a day or so before that final dinner. Our friend had invented a fake girlfriend and carried on a 6-7 month pretend relationship just so he would not feel left out. My mother, who already had all the attention she could ever use, faked brain cancer to get even more. We all fell for it for about 3 months when her little ruse began to unravel. She was still my mother, but everyone basically turned our collective backs to her due to the fact that her little stunt spit in all our faces. Her very own sister and my jolly aunt had died a couple years earlier from leukemia. While I was going through a divorce a few years back, my child was staying with me, and my soon-to-be ex-wife decided to send some ambiguous text messages implying that she'd never see our child again, and to deliver a final kiss. Boy, was she pee when the police showed up at the house at 6:15 am, pounding on the windows asking her WTF. Mom, I hope you got custody. Good for you for not ignoring her. Though, even attention seekers occasionally do something really crazy. Cheers. My sister was jealous of my wife and I having twins. She doctor shopped around until she could convince someone to prescribe her fertility drugs. Clomid in her case. Mind you, she was fertile myrtle. Already had 3 kids. On these drugs, she conceived twins. My wife and I ended up losing our twins in a miscarriage. My sister named her twins the names we told the whole family that we had planned to name ours. Holy crap. I am so sorry, not only for your loss, but for having a lunatic for a sister. My friend constantly tells the story of how he almost died. According to him, when we were walking down a mountain, he fell off the edge of a cliff, grabbed a ledge at the last second, and pulled himself up with one arm. I was with him that day and it simply just didn't happen. He just started yammering out of nowhere to our friend the moment we met up with him and kept repeating it everyone ever since. I have a friend like that. I just go along with it. Our fake childhood memories are much better than the real thing. In high school, I was friends with a chick who invented a whole group of fake friends that had a house she would hang out at, and they all regularly visited a local club down in Charlotte. Apparently they all had crazy alcohol-induced sex orgies and listened to obscure music like Tokyo Hotel, her favorite band that no one else enjoyed. Crap didn't start to add up, especially when these friends of hers all had stupid names like LX, were all goth and emo models, and their Facebook pages had no pictures. Stopped entertaining her when we learned this aforementioned club didn't exist, and all of the messages she sent using the fake FB pages had the same grammar and spelling errors. Also, their numbers in her phone would never connected when she asked us to call them on her phone, but oh, they had no trouble calling her to say they couldn't hang. She kept this thing going from 8th grade on and never admitted to them being fake. TL. DR. High school girl invents group of fabulous goth model friends. A chick in my paramedic class who I stupidly made friends with, faked uterine cancer to get out of most fourth quarter classes and clinicals. Well, I had gone with her for the biopsy, and while she was out the doctor came to give me the report. Her permission, and it was endometriosis. She played this up for months, sitting home, while the rest of us were busting our asses. 2 weeks before finals and national registry, I had a powwow with our awesome lead instructor and told him all. He promptly threw her out. She would have killed someone eventually. I once heard her tell a post-bypass patient that he could take Tylenol or aspirin daily. They were the same thing, except they are not. Tylenol or aspirin daily. I've heard there is a new brand of aspirin called I can't believe it's not acetaminophen. A girl that was in my world literature class gave a guy a handy during class while we were watching a movie. She was the new girl and really wanted to be popular. Everything went downhill for her after that. One of my best friends had always wanted to be an actor. We're from LA, so eventually he got some headshots done and started going to auditions and whatnot. We were about 19 at the time and he was dating a girl in high school. LOL I know, who was involved with the drama program that he was in when we were in high school. Anyways, he shows up at my house one day a bit excited with a bag of weed. Didn't think much of it because he's always in an upbeat mood and has weed on him. We get high and I notice his excitement is growing and he pulls out a big envelope and tells me to open it. Inside is 5 pages stapled together with the Warner Brothers heading, addressed to him and a crap ton of fine print. He tells me to turn to page 3 and there I see that it says he has been cast as an extra in one of the Harry Potter flicks as a student in the Great Hall. Even said he was to be fitted for Gryffindor colors. One of the girls in the drama department's dad was a producer on the film. He's beyond excited, as is everyone else for him. Few weeks goes by and he tells me that he has to dress up, pay $20 or something for a limo and go get fingerprinted and have his id copied for the role. Didn't think much of it as I don't know much about the industry and its workings. So he does all that, gets dressed up, they all get picked up by a limo and drive over to WB Studios and are turned down at the gate because they are not on, they were late. What he didn't tell me was that the initial girl who got everyone into this was the one talking to security. So we hang out a couple days later and he's super bummed out. A year goes by and we both score jobs at Warner Brothers and he brings up the whole Harry Potter story to our boss. She tells us that none of Harry Potter was filmed at the studios. It was all filmed overseas or something. He does a bit of investigating and it turns out that this high school chick made it all up. The story, the limo, her dad being a producer, even wrote up those 5-page contracts herself. Teacher gets in contact with the parents and the last I heard she was being admitted to a psychiatric hospital for having an emotional breakdown after all her lies starting coming out. Sorry, that was long. TL. DR. Friend was cast in Harry Potter film. Goes through all the steps. Shows up at studio for filming and gets turned away. Finds out crazy B that got him the part was a compulsive liar. That did not end how I expected it to. My dad's an investment manager and several years ago randomly encountered this woman at a hospital. When she found out what he did, she said that she had a lot of money she wanted to leave to her children. She was dying of cancer and thought maybe he could potentially invest it. My dad spent months meeting with her, discussing her options and flew out of state a couple times to see her. This was about a year after 9/11 and let's just say the market hadn't performed in my dad's favor. So while my dad spent a lot of his own money and time on this woman in a time where he desperately needed a client, she just straight tells him one day that she doesn't have kids and she isn't dying. I remember that actually hurt my dad pretty bad. Hugs for your dad. I can only imagine the look of hurt. Honestly, this doesn't sound like stooping so low for attention. This sounds like check her into a psych ward. She is mentally insane and needs help. Attention seeking ends well before you throw yourself off a ferry into the ocean, lake, river. I went to high school with a girl who told everyone she had a brain tumor for half of sophomore year and the other half she told everyone she was pregnant. Both false. She didn't go there junior year, but came back senior year and never mentioned it again. Obviously she missed 11th grade to have brain surgery and raise her child. I went to school with this girl, who, since the first day back in September, told us she had a 4-year-old daughter. A couple months ago she told all of us her daughter died in a car accident. I split from work as soon as I found out to be there for her. Took her to eat and was there for her 4 weeks until graduation, end of this past April. I thought it was weird the way she was acting, but I figured everyone felt with death differently. I do not have any kids, so I couldn't even imagine being in her supposed position. Couple weeks ago I heard from one of the other girls in my class that girl A never even had a daughter. I was disgusted. How does someone lie about something like that? Girl A texted me and tried to apologize. I told her never to talk to me again. She tried to offer me money for the day I left work to be with her. What a disgusting human being. Her mother said she is always making up something for attention. She talk about her non-existent daughter every day. TLDR. Girl in class lied to us for 6 months about having a daughter. Even faked her non-existent daughter's death for attention. School gave her time off from externship and everything. Disgusting. I was expecting a girl B. My ex-girlfriend used to cut herself, pretend to hyperventilate, fake illness and threaten to commit suicide just to get sympathy, attention and people to worry about her. I took her to hospital 3 times, each time with the doctor declaring her completely healthy, even once saying her forced hyperventilation was causing her to become ill. Her suicide threats extended to just talking about cutting herself with a butter knife. She would scratch her arm with safety scissors and claim she was addicted to cutting herself. She isn't my problem anymore. In fact, I feel sorry for the people who have to put up with her neediness for attention. When I was a kid, my mom used to hurt herself, then cry right in front of me and accuse me of doing it. When my dad would come home from work, she would tell him that I had hurt her and that I need to be punished. She would get my little brother to back her up. Fun times. I worked with a girl who faked her pregnancy too. When I announced I was pregnant at work, I made a bet with my fiance that she would say she was pregnant too. I was right. She announced her pregnancy about a week later. Nobody believed her because she was the typical problematic office drama queen. Constantly crying in the office over marriage problems. Claimed her husband cheats on her. That sort of thing. She was 35 years old, overweight, homely, but she kept at her desk a framed glamour portrait of herself in high school when she had modeled. To prove to all of us that she was once attractive, I guess she was always scheming people too. Trying to get everybody fired or in trouble basically. She really needed attention at work. Anyways, nobody was surprised when she announced she lost her baby a few weeks later. But after that, she turned creepy. She told everyone she was having her baby vicariously through me and began keeping track of all of my doctor's appointments. She honestly knew the purpose of each appointment without me having to mention. I began having paranoia that she would steal my baby and began dreaming about lizards that wanted to eat my baby basket case. Honestly, I feel sort of bad for people who pull those sort of stunts. Obviously something is very wrong if they are that desperate for attention. A guy I played World of Warcraft for a few years faked a fiancé. The worst part, besides him always gloating and making fun of the other guys for being single losers, was when he would argue against abortion with me. He was a religious nut from the Midwest, saying his fiancé was raped, had an abortion and deeply regretted it. One summer, his IRL friends came to play with us, and when we asked him about the fiancé, he was really freaking confused. We confronted him and he ended up bailing with our guild's bank items. Fun times. Darn him for taking the guild bank and items. A former friend of mine was desperately jealous of me for being with my boyfriend at the time, said person's best friend, and it drove him absolutely insane that my boyfriend was paying attention to me instead of him. They had apparently known each other for years, and this person had some serious social anxiety dependence issues. Also, long story short, he faked his mother's death to get attention, sympathy, and time alone with my boyfriend because I just didn't understand. He went the whole 9 yards. First he told us that she had terminal cancer. Then he'd called begging my boyfriend to come over because he just left the hospital and needed someone to talk to. Then, finally, the death. Refused to invite us to the funeral because it was family only. I saw her driving last week, and she asked me how I was doing when I followed her into a convenience store. She remembered me from this guy introducing us way back when. All I said was fine, thank you, and left. I didn't have the cajones to tell her that her son was going around telling people she was dead. Oh, and we're all male and gay. Sometimes I think he was just jealous and wanted to distract him from me at any cost. TLDR. Former friend faked his own mom's death to distract my boyfriend from being with me. Possibly because he's crazy, but more likely because he was jealous. That was a hysterical story. The "oh, and we're all gay males" was the best bit. My friend's boyfriend was a super bullshitter. He lied about several things. One, he had special abilities to the point where if he really concentrated he could turn off power lights with his mind, but could never prove it because he was under too much pressure. Coincidentally, when Heroes was aired, he could also apparently cry blood. The worst lie though was about his brother dying. Apparently his brother Dante got shot and killed when he was a child in the street, in broad daylight in Wales. And to never ever mention it to his mum because she would just get upset. And to never splash water on his face because he would black out and hurt someone. Hugh going over his house, never seeing any pictures of him, actually getting the balls to mention it in front of his mum, exposed as a fricked up little liar, and yet my friend is still with him. TLDR. Friend can control electric, cry blood and has an imaginary brother then got shot. She sounds mentally ill, not crazy in the way that Redditors generally mean it. I hope that the police are trying to get her seen by a doctor. Many of these stories sound more like mental illness than the classic crazy ex type of story. I'm feeling more pity than outrage. These many years ago, I dated a guy whose ex faked a pregnancy to try to win him back. There's your TLDR. We were all pretty certain she was faking it at the time, but went along with it just in case. If there had been a kid, it would have been unfair not to welcome it, you know? She was large, which made it difficult to know whether she was showing or just fat. She spent hundreds of dollars on baby clothes. She asked my ex to accompany her to OBGYN appointments, but made a last-minute excuse to exclude him every time. She had back surgery and got a tattoo during the alleged pregnancy. On Christmas Eve that year, while he and I were together for the first time in weeks, it was a LDR. She paged him from the hospital, spelling out "baby is here." In this age of texting, I'm not actually sure now how she did that. I just remember that she did. 84,833 15 43,123, maybe? Anyway, she didn't let my ex see the baby, citing objections to me. The only proof she offered was a photo which, judging by the color quality, seemed to be from the 70s. This was in 1997. It showed a baby, definitely not a newborn. Happily, the guy and I split up not long after and I only have sane people in my life now. I do wish I'd been around for the conclusion of that crazy tale, though. Not having been there is like not having seen the end of a fairly interesting movie. I also know someone who faked a pregnancy but she always claimed she miscarried late into the pregnancy, but then she'd get pregnant again. I should have figured this part out at the time, but they don't call it a miscarriage after the first trimester. In HS I had cut myself on occasion. No big sob story, never anything life-threatening. And I had a friend who was very competitive with me. She came to school one day, in the middle of winter, wearing a skirt, with the name of a guy we were both interested carved into the side of her calf. Idiot. I'm sure he loved the heck out of the both of you. Friend of mine reinvented her entire history and posted it twice on her blog. She seems convinced the things she's made up are true. Here's a short sampling. She totally had a pregnancy no one would know about or be able to prove. Conveniently lost the baby and told no one ever until it was very convenient to sap attention from her friends. She knows full well that miscarriages affect me strongly and used it to try to get me to find her a place to live and sympathy points for attention. This was when I decided I was fed up with things. Claimed the friend she had moved in with and had stolen board from had stopped paying her half of the rent. Did not seek another job even though she was aware the job she had was a temporary one. Kicked her out because she wouldn't be his boyfriend. Somehow I think it was more about her being a bum. She isn't attractive emotionally or physically and had a bad habit of never showering. Likes to run away from home and live on unsuspecting people's couches because she has no semblance of responsibility. Does not pay rent or contributes, but feels free to complain about not having enough space. Greatly exaggerates her disabilities. To refuse to work. I'd known her for 14 years. I knew her limitations, and while she has several, she is not physically disabled in the slightest. I've got cerebral palsy, but when we were in school I continued to work on walking and running in gym classes after surgery on my legs. She would sit down and say she was too tired every day. Falsified fainting spells and exhaustion to get out of work or school. 5. She would also claim that people did things to her that never happened. She began to pull out her hair in 5th grade. There are dozens of witnesses to this behavior, but she insists she was shoved down by an imaginary bully and used makeup to cover the wounds. I have seen her several times without her head coverings. There are none, nor have there ever been, any indications of wounds that became infected or covered in any way. We stopped talking a while ago. I got tired of the emotional manipulation and abuse, the monetary leeching, and being her occasional scapegoat. I'm hoping the people she's been staying with catch on too. No one deserves that, and it makes me livid to think I put up with it for so many years thinking she'd get over it. Crazy cat bonus. When we were in elementary school, and up through middle school, she described herself as cat crazy and would often pretend to be a freaking cat. Once, she told me she was a cat at night and snuck around her neighborhood. We were 12. I told her I was a leprechaun and did a jig. She was not amused. This one girl I knew would start crying and throw temper tantrums when no one would give her beer. She ran out, or stopped drinking without her. It seems a bit ridiculous to me. A ridiculous alcoholic perhaps. Nothing serious, but a close friend revealed to me that he had been lying to his parents about being engaged to a beautiful woman, and while he had kept up this lie for 2 years they finally demanded to meet her. He asked me if he could use my girlfriend. I had memories of that Simpsons episode come back to me and I said no. In the end he got a female friend of his to agree. He never said why he lied in the first place. A girl I used to be friends with faked a pregnancy for 9 months. She put on weight on purpose and even had a huge baby shower with her entire family and group of friends there. We even did the whole measure the belly with streamers game and everything. Then as the due date came and went with no baby she disappeared to a city about 3 hours drive away. After trying to reach her out of concern for about a week she called her then boyfriend, the dad, and me and confessed the whole thing with a teary apology and begged us to come get her. We decided to play it cool and picked up a 6-pack. Not very responsible but we were young and in total shock, and headed down to pick her up. Well, fast forward, we arrive, pick her up, and for some reason they want to head over to the coast and make up. Being the third wheel and also being expected at a huge coming home party for a marine friend of mine, I objected. Her and I ended up getting in a huge cat fight wherein I got out of the car and they left me. So there I was sitting at a gas station 3 hours from home with a dying cell phone. Luckily some friends came down and retrieved me and I was home around dawn. A few days after I got back home I heard through the rumor mill that she was now changing her story and telling people she gave the baby up for adoption and was ashamed, yada yada. I chose the high road and just walked away from any involvement with her and anyone close to her. Funny thing is, about a year later I ran into some mutual friends in a bar one night and she happened to be in tow. Keep in mind before this we were very close friends. She just gave me a sad face a few times and after a few drinks she came up to me all teary-eyed and said, "I just want us to be friends again." I looked at her and told her frankly no hard feelings, but that is never going to happen. TLDR. Never trust crazy. My best friend's girlfriend has faked being pregnant like 4 or 5 times and has claimed 1 abortion and a few miscarriages. She was recently in the hospital for some liver thin, which actually is real, but she kept faking seizures. When the doctors called her out on it, she just told my friend they were real and he got PSM for being incompetent. Her friends have also told us that when my friend lived far away from her for a while, she cheated on him all the time. Kelsey, in case you read this, Kelsey, if you can read this, leave Travis. After all the crap he has been through in his life, he deserves someone way better than you. B. It scared me when I read my name. Then I remembered that I've always lived in Florida. My old roommate and ex-best friend used to get sick every other week, to the point that she would spend all night puking and wouldn't be able to get out of bed. Now, I'm a pretty light sleeper, to the point I would wake up every time she got out of her bed. Most of the nights she was supposedly up all night vomiting. I wasn't woken up once. Also, she was never sick on a night she didn't have a class or work the next day. She also had 3 jobs while she was here in college, all of which she quit a day or 2 before she could be fired. All for no call no shows. Every time she quit, she had an excuse that she was discriminated against and the managers were playing favorites. That's not even the half of it. I saw a post on Tumblr one day about how I apparently went off on her for her alarm waking me up one morning after I had come home at 4. None of which was true. I had gone to bed around 1, and yes, her alarm had woken me up, but I went right back to sleep when she left for class. This among a few other lies I caught her spreading about me via mutual friends at school. The real big one, though, had quite a bit of the school and I fooled for a long while. She came home one day from class, crying, and claiming that her dad had been fired and their family would be poor, that he couldn't get a job, and that they were about to lose the house. This resulted in our friends, as well as myself, taking pity on her, buying her food and other necessities, though to this day, I wonder how necessary Steak and Shake twice a week really is. She went on with this for a few months. Finally, she, our mutual friend Alex, and I stayed at her house on the way to her convention. We chatted it up with her father over some beers, who told us that he had quit his job and had already found another. He was simply taking a break between them. They had just gotten their kitchen remodeled a month or so prior. When Alex and I asked him if he was worried about their money, he laughed at the idea. TLDR. Ex-roommate lied about everything from workplace discrimination, illness, and her family's economic situation for attention and free meals. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.